welcome to the Wine Access Unfiltered podcast. You know, one of the hardest concepts to explain in the wine world is why certain bottles command the price tags that they do. I'm not just talking about justifying the spend or deciding what's quote unquote worth it, because to a degree, that's always going to be kind of subjective, shaped by our experiences, our wallets, our expectations, our egos. What I am talking about is helping people understand where quality actually lives in wine, how to recognize it, how to shop for it, and how to know when you're paying for craftsmanship versus marketing. And that's getting harder and harder to do because as much as we love to romanticize wine, the reality is that wine is at its core a marketed commodity, just like anything else. There are thousands of options on the shelf, each promising something special, yet very little transparency about what actually makes one bottle better or more luxurious than another. And just like in fashion, the labels, the trends, and the storytelling all shape our perception around value. Sometimes what we're drawn to is about taste. Sometimes it's about identity. And sometimes it is just about the logo, which brings us to today's conversation. Because as much as this podcast is about wine, it's also about how we consume luxury and how our choices, whether it's in our closets or our cellars, reflect who we are and what we value. My guest today understands that better than almost anyone else. I had the great privilege of having the algorithm stop me in my tracks when I saw his content. He is a creator and fashion voice helping millennial women like myself define their personal style through the lens of quiet and loud luxury, that balance between subtle sophistication and statement-making confidence. With 400,000 followers on Instagram, he's built a space that's about empowerment as much as it is about aesthetics, where luxury isn't about labels, but about intention, about discernment, and knowing what feels like you. And that's where the parallels to wine get really fascinating because some bottles, like handbags, scream status, while others, kind of like the one we're drinking today, whisper it. So please welcome to the show, Wale Sani of Style by Wale. Welcome.
Thank you for welcoming me. That was the greatest introduction I have ever heard.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, that was amazing.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it because this is not our normal episode. Although, back in the day when we first started this podcast, we had lots of people from all walks of life, all different sectors. And so, we love talking to people who are not in the wine industry like yourself. But I had a lot of fun trying to find the parallels between my world and your world, of which there are so many. I don't know if you knew that prior to this.
So many, which is why when you did that introduction, I was like, this is going to be a fantastic podcast because she sees the glass door between both.
Yeah. And you have been in fashion for how long now?
For a decade.
A decade. Got your start in Chicago where you're now?
In Chicago, yeah. West suburbs of Schaumburg, if you're familiar with that.
Okay. And I saw in my digging that you are a former Nordstrom employee.
Yeah.
Is that where you got your start?
That's where the start was. Actually, no, take that back. Macy's was in the same mall. Macy's.
Oh.
Yeah,
Macy's,
so we went.
We love Macy's.
Yeah, Macy's holds us down.
And so today, your job is fully in creating content, and then also, do you do like personal consulting for women like myself?
I do, but it's mostly people that I've kind of been friends with over the years, and I kind of point them in the right direction. Considering half of the stuff comes from me anyway, so I'm like, hey, I know you have this jacket in there. You should just put it with these shoes. It's going to work well.
Oh, I desperately need your assistance. I feel like I have a closet full of things where I'm just like, I know it should work. Like in theory, this has a place based on, previous things that I've done. But I will tell you what I've done as of late that's been sort of a game changer is when I travel, I take pictures of all of my outfit. Like I plan my outfits ahead of time and I take pictures of them. And then I know exactly what I'm going to wear ahead of time. And I feel like I just need that on repeat for myself, like in life. Like I need like the share closet situation.
Oh, 100%. And a real interesting point to what you're even saying. So many ideas work well in the brain until they're on your body. And you're like, that should have came out way better than it did.
Fail.
Yeah.
So many times. Well, I'm very excited to talk about all things style with you. I am not I love fashion. I am not even like 1/1000th of a percentage point close to as knowledgeable about fashion as you are. But I do love a well-curated closet. But when I was watching your content, I think kind of what stopped me is a lot of your content is pointing out some of these quiet luxury pieces that speak volumes about you. And so I'm watching it and I'm like expecting to know some of the brands, and most of them I'd never heard of, like the Clementine bag by the horse, for example. I had never seen before. It's beautiful. I want one now. And that's kind of where like something clicked for me and made me want to reach out to you, because as much as, I'm someone who's deep in the wine world, I see this all the time where, the same brands get pushed forward, but the real gems kind of hide out for the true enthusiasts in the back. So how does one find these brands like the horse in fashion?
Well, let's say you find them by figuring out the brands that you don't like. I think a lot of the times we spend so much time investing into finding things that we enjoy, where if we just remove the spaces for things that we don't enjoy, things that we do like will automatically find their way to slot into our lives, which is why a closet refresh is so important. Because if you announce to yourself that you don't like what this does for your wardrobe or what this feels like for you, that gives you an opportunity for more love. Because energy is already finite. You're giving it to something. Why not giving it to things that you love versus things that you don't really work well for you?
Do you feel like that announcement is one of the harder things for people to acknowledge? Like, I loved your quote about the Goyard bag and the fact that it's like the beef tartare of the luxury world. But like, I feel like coming to terms with the fact that you don't like something is hard, especially when you've made an investment in something, right?
Oh, 100%. But why I think that's so important, and what you even annotated earlier, is that you may say, I think that you know so much more about fashion than I do. The interesting thing is, as someone who works in that space, you're actually the average of the customer. Most people don't need to know who Alessandro Michele is, and they probably don't really care to. And that's okay. But they know what they do like and what they don't like. And that's more important than following designers or following brands that could potentially sell you something in the future.
That's such an interesting point. And I think it's one that I've often talked about with wine is like, as you just said, like I need to know the nitty gritty details. Like I'm a somm, I work in the wine industry. Like I need to know these names. I need to know, the specific soil types of vineyards. But as a fashion consumer, like those things are not as important. So like in the wine world, as a consumer, or excuse me, in the fashion world as a consumer, like what things are important and what are the things that you should be looking for?
I would say the first thing you should be looking for is, are you already naturally expressing yourself? Because I think a really big thing is oftentimes when we don't look inward, we look outward for our clothes to represent who we are as an individual, when that's secondary to, are you representing yourself in your everyday life with your home, with your kids, with your job? And then when you do that, I guarantee you the clothes will naturally represent that for who you are as an individual.
But how do you do that? Like, how do you recommend doing that? Like, do you sit down and, write a list of like all the qualities that you want to be? Do you like create a Pinterest board? Like, what do you see working and trying to find out who you are inside before you find the representation outside?
Yeah, I would say that a good thing first is which is hard for us to do as individuals, is to recognize why you were drawn to this in the first place, right? Which I think with a lot of the content that I produce, and you've probably seen, it's not necessarily your everyday luxury fashion content from someone that,
right?
Because they could tell you, hey, buy this Celine bag, it's $4,000, it's going to change your life. You've lived long enough to know that's probably not going to happen when you buy the bag.
Yeah.
Right. I
have a Celine bag that I wanted desperately at the age of 29 that is sitting up in my closet right now, literally collecting dust.
And you're not alone. Like Michael Jackson said, you really aren't. And and understanding that it probably helps you with the wine world too. Someone's like, hey, listen, I want an amazing experience with wine. And you're like, listen, you don't have to go and get the $400 bottle. You may want to start with some options that that's great, that will satisfy you at 100 or 120,
Yeah. It's so hard. I think price is so hard, especially in wine and in fashion, because it is such a wide array, right? Like you can get a t-shirt for $5 at Walmart, and you can also get a t-shirt for $500 at Saks Fifth Avenue. They're both going to do the same thing at the end of the day. They're going to clothe your body, but how they feel, what they say about you, all the things that purchase represents, those are two very different things that I think I've had a hard time in the wine world helping people to understand. Like is there going to be a taste difference between a $15 bottle and a $500 one? Absolutely. But it's so much more than that. So how do you feel like you can justify some of the more expensive purchases over the less expensive ones?
Well, all purchases are justifiable based upon your perspective. So something that I think is really fun when it happens is sometimes someone will come across my videos and they're like in their early 20s, right? And I can just feel it. I don't even have to go on your profile. I can just see by the way you're communicating, the emojis, anything, right? So the moment they'll ask me a question, I know where their intention of what the question is going towards. So for example, hey, like I'm looking for like a really great bag so I can go out with my friends tonight. And I'm like, listen, you've come to the wrong person, but I know the right answer.
Okay.
And the right answer is that you're going to need a pochette. And not that I would ever recommend it to my customers, but because I know you're just looking for a bag that's going to assume the status that you would love to have within the future. This bag is going to do that for you.
See, I mean, you're taking into consideration the entire equation, right? Like you're assuming, right? Like you're assessing the individual, you're assessing their situation, you're assessing what they want out of the bag, not necessarily the raw materials that are making the bag.
Correct. Because from your perspective, you want to make a statement. But for my customers that have been old enough to have went through the rodeo that you're probably going to go through in the next 20 years, I know what they're looking for as well.
I feel like I'm interested in making a different statement. It's not that I'm interested in not making a statement. It's like, I want this statement to be less obvious, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
You know what I mean? Like, and you want to be like, how do I put this? So you may or may not agree with the purchase decision I made last year, which was I was in London. And you can tell me if it was dumb. I was in London. I was in Mayfair and I went to the Row and I was very excited because I had never been to a Row store. And like, you know, it's got a lot of like lore and pomp and circumstance. Like you can't take photos in the lore, right? Like they will yell at you until you put your phone away. You can, however, FaceTime your husband to find out if it's a good purchase decision. That they did let me do. Anyway, to digress. I go into the Row, I'm, nosying around and I find this bag and I've been looking for like a really beautiful leather carry-all tote. I've had a Louis Vuitton Neverfull since I was 25 years old. And that thing has been a workhorse in my life. It has been beat to shit and it does not need to live on my shoulder any longer. And so this was sort of a replacement for that. And so I bought it. And so to me, the Row was sort of this symbol of quiet luxury to the degree that like a Row bag can be. And that like, it wasn't loud. It didn't have a big logo, but it also like, I got on the plane the other day and this woman who was sitting like 2 doors down was like, oh, like beautiful Row bag. And like, she was dressed beautifully and like all the stealth wealth that one could love. And I was like, oh, I feel accepted and I feel embraced by this community. And so it was like a different acceptance from a different, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but like, I didn't want I'm not looking for loud luxury anymore. I'm looking for quiet luxury, but I'm also looking for that luxury to be recognized amongst, I guess, a group of people that I shouldn't care to impress.
No, and I love that you said that because that even circles back to my original point is I know she wanted to be recognized by people within that certain demographic, which is why I recommended you a pochette bag because same reason you bought the Neverfull 20 years ago is why she's buying the pochette today, which is to get recognized by a certain group of individuals by that item. And with you buying the Row, it wasn't necessarily about the bag, but it was about acknowledging to yourself that you're worthy of conforming to this form of quality that you would expect in your life at this point in this day and age, which is why the Row is so successful. And I understand it. But when that girl acknowledged you, you're like, this made that purchase so worth it.
Yes.
And you can quantify that. You can't quantify that by the number of the bag. Right.
You can justify it by saying like, oh, the leather feels great. And like, it's clearly like good materials, to the extent that I would know what that means. But
yes,
there's to your point, there's an unquantifiable feeling that you get from wearing that bag, from making that purchase decision. And I do think the same is very much true in wine. Like, it's funny to me watching some of these reality TV shows, especially, or even non-reality TV shows, and seeing the wines on the table of certain people that I'm like, this is not commensurate with the rest of your life. Like this buying decision doesn't make sense. Like you shouldn't have a bottle of like, sorry, cupcake, $13 cupcake Sauvignon Blanc when you're carrying all of the Birkins in the world and flaunting your wealth like to the degree that you are. Like this does not make any sense. And so it's always kind of wild to me that like more people don't pay attention to what their wine says about them versus like what it actually tastes like. Now, it should taste delicious. And by the way, we are far too deep into this podcast for me to not be drinking. So grab your wine. Cheers to you.
Cheers.
I should have asked, are you a wine drinker in your regular everyday life when you're not shopping for great bags?
You know, I love that you asked that question because I'm not. And I learned that while trying to get ready for this podcast. So I opened the box just today. I opened the box of the wine and I see it comes with 2 bottles. So I'm like, okay, great. I know someone in this house has a wine bottle opener. So I'm going through every cabinet, have no wine bottle opener in our entire house. So I go outside and I live right next to a very popular French restaurant. It's like a cult classic in Chicago. So I'm like, they're definitely going to have a bottle of wine opener. So I go there. I'm walking around with this bottle of wine to this restaurant. And I walk in and everyone's just like, this is not BYOB. What is this guy doing here? So I go to the front. I'm like, hey, listen, can I just get this bottle of wine open? I have this podcast that I really love to film and this would help me out. And this guy goes, what do you know about this wine? And I'm like, I really don't know anything. If you have anything you want to tell me, like, please tell me, let me know. He has this wine tattooed on his forearm. His parents,
stop it.
I'm not even joking. His parents grew up in the town where this wine was cultivated, which just lets you know this podcast was meant to be recorded.
Clearly.
He shows me the forearm tattoo. He's like, dude, my parents grew up here. I know I could break down everything about this wine for you. And I'm looking at him like how you look at me for Luxury Fashion. I'm looking at him like I have literally zero idea what you're talking about, but this is amazing. He's like, yeah, if you ever want any recommendations of what wines would work well with this, let me know.
Look at that wine bringing people together that, you never would have met your downstairs French neighbor at the restaurant without this wine, which is great. And also now like the serendipity, the kismet of all of this is just insane to me.
I wish I took. Yeah, I'm probably going to go back and like, hey, can I take a picture of your forearm just so I could just send it to my friend? So oh my God, it was crazy.
This is so wild. I love this. All right. Well, for those who are not watching this, the wine
cheers.
And cheers to that. Seriously, yes. That is so crazy.
Cheers
I love that. And hopefully you like it. This is a Beaujolais, so it's a cru Beaujolais. The producer that we're drinking is called Chateau. It is from, so I'll kind of point a few things out on this label here. So you got Chateau, which is the producer, right? It's who made the wine. So, in fashion speak, this would be the house, right? This would be, your Gucci, the Row, whatever, right? Under here, you have Fleurie. Now, because we're in Europe, this is where things get a little bit confusing because they put a lot of value on the location of where their grapes are grown. And so wines are really labeled more so by their region than they are by, the grape. So it's not going to say anywhere in here, I don't think, well, it does on the very back. Normally it doesn't say what the grape is. It's never going to tell you exactly, specifically what the raw material is. But we are talking about a wine from Beaujolais, which is southern Burgundy. This is a region that I'll give you a little, so I'm going to give you a lot of history on this because I think what I would like you to do is find me some sort of fashion equivalent.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. So this is what's called a cru Beaujolais. And Beaujolais is this region in France that produces the Gamay grape. Now, Gamay is sort of what some would call an inferior grape to something like Pinot Noir, right? Which is produced in Burgundy. And Burgundy is a region that produces some of the most expensive wines in the world. Beaujolais is a place that, because they're producing the Gamay grape and not really the Pinot Noir grape, it's sort of become this value-centric region. And for a long time, it was like extremely value-centric, like to the point where like you couldn't sell these wines for more than €5, right? And about 20 years ago, some of the producers there decided that they felt like they could actually make a really quality wine from the Gamay grape. And the way that they were going to do that is they were going to start making these wines from specific places, crus within Beaujolais. And so each cru has a name. There's 10 of them. The one in this case is called Fleurie. That's what's on the front of the label here. It's 100% Gamay, and it's not necessarily made to age. It's not a wine that you're going to have forever and ever and ever, but it is a wine that is meant to drink and be consumable. And this is the most important thing, it's a wine that, because it is so approachable in its youth, that has a little bit of pedigree associated with it, that has some great viticulture and winemaking behind it. It's a wine that wine connoisseurs love because it's this like $30 bottle that they can have either like before, in between, on a Tuesday night. That's not $300-400 and breaking the bank. So Cru Beaujolais has sort of become the favorite for sommeliers like me, like your friend down at the French Bistro, because it is such an accessible wine, because it is so delicious. And yet, even though it's inexpensive, it's still very much a wine that's embraced by the wine and somm community. So it's a great sort of like hack wine, so to speak, for someone that's like, I don't have a lot of money to spend on a wine, but I'm going to a wine party. I'm going to my boss's house. I'm going to a wine collector's house. What wine can I bring that's not going to embarrass me? That's also going to be something that they want to drink. Is Cru Beaujolais all day. This is something that everyone sort of gets behind because it's delicious. Also a great bistro wine because it's great with chicken. So I'm glad you're having it with chicken.
Yeah, I had fried chicken, which definitely did not.
Perfect.
Yeah. Definitely wasn't in my bingo cards, but tasted well.
Not in your bingo card today. You know what the actual best fried chicken pairing is? This is going to blow your mind. Champagne and
fried chicken.
Yeah. And you know what champagne doesn't need? It doesn't need a wine opener. It just needs your hand.
Yeah, that could have helped me a couple hours ago. I'll tell you that.
Having heard all of that, all of the backstory behind Cru Beaujolais, any like fashion equivalents that this might?
A fashion equivalent would be a Studio Nicholson, which is like a real small house. They make the row-esque clothes, but at a medium where it's not necessarily H&M quality that you're known for, but it's a step up, a little bit of a pricier side. But the clothes are fantastically cut at a price point that would make you want to fill your entire wardrobe with it. So they make elevated, simplistic basics with really great tones that make it easy to pair with other wild things in your wardrobe. So they make great navies, great olives, great browns, real trustworthy for people that work in fashion to get the row look that they don't have to spend the row dollar to get.
And brands that I can Google and shop from? Or is this in the mall? Like, where do I find this?
Oh, it's just a DTC brand. They may have a store probably in like LA and New York.
Studio Negociant is the brand. This is not
the brand.
Okay. That's okay. So that's where I was like, Studio Negociant, like a ubiquitous term for like. So Studio Negociant is the brand.
Is the brand? Yes.
Okay. Are there other brands like Studio Negociant that do that, or is that because I've never heard of this?
Yeah, there's tons of them. I mean, you could go with the elevated H&M is COS. There's a brand ARKET. I don't know if you've heard of that brand. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Or you could even go, Eileen Fisher is always a great one.
Oh yeah.
Which is crazy. There's so many brands that I think that do that look that I don't think that are necessarily recognized to that pedigree. Those are some brands that I really do enjoy that remind me of this wine here at a reasonable price, great quality.
I want to talk a little bit about this idea between quiet luxury and loud luxury. Like, what is quiet luxury to you? What is loud luxury?
So I would say when many people ask what quiet luxury is, they're looking for a product that is willing to withstand the quality that they're willing to invest to pay for it. Right. And that can mean different things for everyone. But I think loud luxury for many people is products that don't live up to the investment that they're making in the product. So oftentimes we think of loud luxury as logo centric, which are just because it falls under that trait many times doesn't mean that trait is the definition of what it is. Right. So I think logomania is one of those things. And I think a lot of people now, if they're willing to pay for something, they have to believe the story of what they're buying.
Mm.
And I think that's what loud luxury is. You don't believe in the story of what you're buying. Versus quiet luxury is you're invested in what the story portrays as to who you are as an individual.
Do you think that loud luxury has a correlation with quality? Like the louder the luxury, the less quality the good likely is?
Sometimes, yes, but loud luxury is you. Because, for example, to anyone who works in fashion, the row is loud luxury.
Mm.
The lady who saw your bag knew that was the row. There was no second guessing it, right? So
says the row.
Says so to quantify loud luxury as just logo centric or just that would be denying other people's vision of what loud luxury is.
Okay.
So quiet luxury is just anything that allows you to believe the story that what you're investing in.
Mm. Do you feel like there has to be transparency for something to be quiet luxury? Like, do they have to have, information on where the raw materials are coming from, where their factories are, the store? Like, does there have to be story and all of that for it to fall under what you would deem a quiet luxury mantle?
No. And reason I say that is many times we tell the story to ourselves and just hope their story matches the story we want to feel.
Mm.
So oftentimes with, for example, Loro Piana had this whole big thing where they were having this workers' rights, to say the least, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dilemma. The people who buy Loro Piana probably aren't concerned about workers' rights.
Right.
Not to say that that's a good or a bad thing. That's another conversation for another day. But that's not part of the story of why they tell themselves or why they buy Loro Piana. So to the brand, that doesn't affect whether or not it's quiet luxury to the audience that purchases it in the first place.
This is where it's so hard to figure out with wine, because the idea, like this idea of quiet luxury versus loud luxury in the wine world, there's a lot of loud luxury, right? There's a lot of brands that, I would consider like vanity labels, right? It's people that come in that, slap their name on something. They hire the same winemaker. They use the Bexafer Tocolon grapes, which is like a, very premier vineyard in Napa Valley. And, they say this is $500. It's allocated. It's hard to get. In reality, it's not. And that to me is like very, very loud luxury. And then you have this other sort of like category of loud luxury where, you would maybe throw like Opus One or like Dom Perignon or like Cristal champagne. Like that is a form of loud luxury that also has quality behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And like this is where I struggle, I think, in the fashion world, because I want to believe that the row is quiet luxury, but it's not. And I want to believe it's quiet luxury because to me, it feels luxurious and it feels like the raw materials are of a certain quality versus like if I go and buy a canvas Fendi bag, like that doesn't feel luxurious. It feels like loud luxury. And so that's sort of where I have this like interesting disconnect between the wine and the fashion world and sort of discerning between the two. And it doesn't necessarily like one doesn't negate the other, but it does say something about you. And I think that's where in the wine world, I have to sort of help people find their path, because there's nothing wrong with a vanity label. There's nothing wrong with wanting to support, someone whose dream it was to buy these grapes and hire the right people and start their own thing. But it is different than supporting or drinking the wine that has been around for 4 generations, that, that hires great people, because, they fit the ethos of that particular brand. So I think that's where I struggle with wine and fashion. And so I wonder, where some of are there fashion brands that maybe are loud luxury that still have, quality behind it, like a Dom Perignon or like a Krug or like an Opus?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's tons of brands that I think that fall into that space, right? Like there's a Celine really stands by their quality. You have Ready to Wear by Hermes. I mean, even though once again, I consider that loud luxury. People consider, like, I've never seen a Birkin. I was like, well, I think that might not be a Birkin. Like, I think that's a Birkin.
I think,
right?
Well, it's also the point of a Birkin, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But I think a real great parallel, and the word I was looking for is causation, not correlation.
Yeah. Yes.
Causation, not correlation. Yes. So perfect example is for you. You live in Philly, right?
He says with a smirk.
We're a sports city in the world. If you were to, if you were to take your house and move it into the Hamptons, would the value of it increase or decrease?
It would increase, I would hope.
It would increase. But none of that increase is a representation of the quality of your house. It's just the territory that it's occupying space in. So with a lot of quiet luxury versus loud luxury, price isn't the differentiator between whether or not it's quiet or loud. And I think that's something that's very important to signify to people to understand the difference between two.
Yeah, that's so true. I've never used that example, but it's so fitting in wine because, I mean, obviously, like the reason that this wine that we're drinking, this Beaujolais, is as cheap as it is has really everything to do with where it's grown, right? The real estate here is so much cheaper than what it would be in like Geoffroy Chambertin and Burgundy, right? And these are two different grapes and they're made different ways. But, you know, at the end of the day, this is a light-bodied red wine that's really good with chicken. Well, so is a red Burgundy. That's, $500. But to your point, if you picked this wine up and you put it in Geoffroy Chambertin, it would look a little different because you picked it up and put it in Geoffroy Chambertin, but it would also command a different price tag. And that's an interesting distinction between quiet and loud luxury. So what are your quiet luxury brands to go to then?
As we were talking about this, a brand that I really do enjoy is I enjoy the Clementine Bag by the Horse. Not necessarily because I spoke on it, but I love what it represents is that people are willing to walk away from this traditional Gucci, Prada, Louis Vuitton, and still feel that level of recognition by other people, very similar to you with the Row bag. Because once you heard her go, she didn't say, I loved your bag. She said, I saw you.
Yes.
That's really what it
Big
meant.
difference.
Big difference, right? So I can only imagine if you're wearing the Clementine Bag with a Horse, or you're wearing a Pauline bag, or you're wearing if you're wearing Demelier or Monique, or so many different options. To find someone on the street that goes, I see you, would mean, it just means so much more, because it means that they've went through the same journey of walking away from these big brands as you have. So those are the kind of brands that I look at as quiet luxury right now.
I do love what you're doing, because I think you don't shit on brands, which is great. I mean, you did call Goyard beef tartare, which is hilarious.
People love beef tartare, which is funny in the comments.
People love beef tartare. I love beef tartare, but it was so good.
Like a lady in the comment section, she was like, what do you mean? I love beef tartare. And I was like, yeah, you're getting the joke. You just haven't understood you got it yet.
This idea of like Demelier, Pauline, I'm trying to think like, what's the history behind some of these brands? Like, are they newer brands? Are they, or are they like legacy that like we just didn't know about before?
Well, with a lot of the research that I've done with these brands, none of them really share, and which is something that I wish they did do, is none of them really share their point of view as to why these brands were created. I mean, it's a really softball answer. It's like, hey, we wanted to give luxury at accessible price points. Yeah, it was just great. It was cool. But I think the next brand that's really going to command a lot of attention and currency in that space is a brand that gives a POV as to why they are the counterculture to these big legacy brands. Because ultimately, if Pauline gets acquired by LVMH or they get acquired by Kering, they lose their entire POV of value, because we as consumers, we don't know why you were created in the first place. So I think that's a great perspective that you brought up. If any of these brands could just at least redeliver their POV, so very similar to what Coach is doing, where they're saying, hey, listen, we've been in these spaces and we're reinventing ourselves for our modern consumer. And we feel that. We understand the POV and the perspective of that. But I think if any of these new brands really did that, they would take themselves to another level for sure.
That's an interesting point, because there are a lot of brands, especially in like Bordeaux and in Napa Valley right now, who are they're what I would consider legacy brands. Like they've been around, in California less time than in like France, but they've been around to a degree that allows them to have had some circulation. Like they've had the ebbs and flows within like who their demographic is and how they market themselves. And there's a handful in Napa Valley right now who have been around since like, let's call it the 1960s, 1950s, 1960s, that were really popular for like 2 decades, are sort of rooted in craftsmanship and great grape quality. We're concerned a little bit about who's making the wine, but more so it's about the terroir that like had these like interesting dips in popularity. And now like I've seen probably 10 to 15 of them trying to remarket themselves for the younger generation, and they're failing. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's a function of transparency. I don't know if it's a function of it's just not cool for the younger generation. But I think Coach is a great example because like, what do you think Coach is doing well? Because my sister got a Coach bag. She got what was the really hard one to get? Like, but my sister is a year and a half younger than me. So she's 37. I grew up with my mom, loving Coach. I had a few little like canvas Coach bags with the C's on it. And then it died. It was a brand that died and now is sort of coming back. So what do you attribute that success to?
Is all success is that you have to be willing to lose in areas where you're never going to win in the first place. Mm. And that's the problem with a lot of these new brands, that they're trying to win in all of these spaces. And the problem is you're not sticking to a plan that allows you to be dominant in a space and lose all the other people that were never interested in the first place. So Coach finally came to terms. They're not going to win over a $5,000 client who's looking for a bag. And nor should they ever try, because there was this era where in 2010s where Coach was just like lobbying for this middle ground of death. Right. And they just come to terms. They say, hey, listen, we're helping people who are looking for a great quality bag at a reasonable price that is all about quality. And that's what we're standing and we're dying on that hill. Mm. If you walk away from us, you walk away from us knowing that that's where we stand as a position. And I think a lot of brands, like you were considering with the wine, they die because they're positionless. They die because we don't know what category you're trying to dominate.
Do you feel like fashion has really found its place in the last decade? Because I don't know if it's a function of me just getting older and caring more, but I do feel like fashion's gotten so much better about marketing in the last 10 years. Whereas like wine just cannot find its groove. Like it's like, even I think just listening to you now, it's like, you're saying all of the things that I think we've all been thinking in the wine world, which is like, you can't be everything to everyone. You have to figure out who you're marketing to, and you have to figure out, who, like what your brand stands for and what a consumer drinking it is going to say about them. And that's where I think wine has really missed the mark, in that, as I said earlier, like a $5 bottle of wine versus a $500 bottle of wine is going to be about more than just price and about taste. It's going to be about, what does it say about you? But I think the wine world treats it like they're the one and the same. The wine world treats it like we're just selling a commodity. We're selling a piece of cheese. We're selling, something that, can be produced anywhere. And where I think the fashion world has really succeeded is they figured out how to sort of like segment and sector who their demographic is and specifically who they are. But I don't necessarily feel that that's always been the case, but I might be wrong.
I think all businesses have suffered that because we're living in the economy now where the buyer has the most leverage they've ever had in any point in human history. Right. So, and you're not necessarily out of tune with fashion. As you were saying earlier, you're so in tune to yourself that you know the things that don't work for you. Because if you ever see on social media, the Fashion Week was just this week, and I'm watching these videos, probably similar to you, and I'm like, am I so out of touch that none of these things resonate with me? I don't care. I just don't care. Like people are like, listen, Gucci's debut with, Demna, and I'm looking, I'm like, none of this has ever answered any of my POVs of why I should care. And that's one of the really important parts, is because back when I was working at Nordstrom, we would always tell the buyers, we're like, hey, listen, man, we would need some kitten heels. And they would look at us like, no, they deserve to wear 4-inch heels, 3-inch heels. And if they can't walk in it, that's their problem. Then the pandemic happened. And surprisingly enough, every brand just starts making a kid new. I just didn't know, I guess they looked at the data, but we as consumers know the data because we are the data.
Right.
Right. So
you're talking to people.
We're on the grounds. We're in the front lines. Right. So ultimately, any brand that's going to be successful moving forward from now has to be hyper aware of the perspective that they are pursuing customers to understand, because the customer already has the perspective. You have to just align it with what you're delivering.
And I think now in this advent of social media, to your point, like there's so much information, right? Maybe it's not all of the information that we want, but like I didn't, if I wanted information on what the cool quiet luxury bags were 10 years ago, I would have had to physically walk into a Nordstrom,
correct,
ask to see you and have a conversation, right? But now, you and I can have a conversation without you even knowing about it, right? You can give me all these recommendations and I can say, okay, this person resonates with me. And so I can have all of these trust agents within the fashion world, which I think is maybe to a degree what's lacking in the wine world, is like there aren't enough of me. There's not enough. There's no Wale out there that's saying like, this is what's cool, this is what's not cool. And so maybe we need more of that. I don't know. We do. Yeah. Maybe just, to talk about more Beaujolais, which this is a wine that like it will evolve, but it's like, it's not meant for that. It's not meant for contemplation. Like it's meant for really, really delicious sipping. And it is kind of a wine that needs a little food. So if you don't have any, like, feel free to take a bite of chicken. I won't be offended. But it does, it feels a little like, has that little like zing to it. So if you're drinking this at home, because anyone who's a member of the podcast wine club will have this. If you're drinking this at home and you're like, ooh, this feels like a little edgy to me. It feels like it needs like some like rounding out of the edges. Like just grab some food. It doesn't have to be fancy. It could be a snack. It could be a pretzel. It could be some lunch meat in your fridge. Like whatever's clever. It's fine. But grab a little nibble with it because I think it will help. I want to talk a little bit about, we talk about this concept of building your cellar, building sort of a capsule collection for your cellar. I think having a wine collection, if you're a wine drinker, if you're going to be drinking wine at home, I think it's incredibly important. And I think, the reason for that is, it's really difficult to make a decision on the daily if you're having to go out and shop for a specific bottle of wine for whatever you're having. Like you need to have that flexibility, kind of like you need to have that flexibility in your closet. So what are some of your recommendations and advice on building a wardrobe versus building like a capsule collection versus investment pieces? Like where does someone start? Like they turn 30, we stop wearing H&M and Zara, or maybe we continue it. I don't know.
And Lululemon.
And we start really Lululemon, right? And we start really paying attention to what we're wearing. Where do we start? What do we invest in? What do we buy?
I'd say the first place to start is understanding which forms of emotions that you would love to express through your clothing. Because ultimately, we can all be, have you ever heard of the term different buyer types and different? Mm-mm. Okay. So I'll give you the short and sum since it's a lot. We all fall into one of the 4 buyer types, and those buyer types express the way in which we shop, the way we make decisions, the way that we portray ourselves to the world. So the idea of a capsule collection really falls under which buyer type you are, and then which part of that would you love to express, right? So the idea of believing that this one universal blazer will work for all different categories of people wouldn't necessarily be the case, but your expression through that buyer type will be. So I think the first thing with a capsule wardrobe is understanding what do you want to express with the outfits that you love to create. Because if you're someone who loves to be reserved, doesn't want to be in the spotlight, you're going to dress differently than someone who is outspoken, someone who wants to be the life of the party, who wants to make a statement. So the capsule collection won't make sense for those 2 individuals. So I think understanding who you are as a person and why you want to express yourself in this way allows you then the opportunity to understand which clothes help you assert those certain characteristics. So like a perfect example is like those Alice and Olivia blazers, right? Like there are people who look at that and they say, please never put me in one of those ever again. That looks tacky. And there's some people that like that live in Dallas, and they're like, this is what Dallas is all about, right? So
Yeah.
even though that is just a navy blazer, it represents so much more than just a capsule collection blazer. So I think really what do you want to express is the first place. And then once you can do that, we can really break down what works best for you.
And then are there certain pieces that you would advise investing in first? Like, is it a blazer if that's something that, fits your general day-to-day needs, or is it something else that you should be investing in? Like, I have $300 to spend today. What should I get?
I would always start with either a handbag or a shoe, not just because those are my things that I enjoy, but because you'll have the opportunity to relive why you bought that item so much more frequent than a blazer. So with a great handbag or a shoe, you could find a way to wear it every day, if not every other day, and tap into that energy of why spending $300 may have been more of a leap for you than you originally would have. Very similar to going to an expensive dinner. You can't go to an expensive dinner every night just because maybe you have kids, you have a life that needs to be tended to. But you could probably do it once every 2 weeks or so. But a nice handbag or shoe, if you could put that in every single 2 days or a day, your life's going to change. Absolutely.
Yeah. I have been eyeing the Clementine bag. And I do have questions about that bag because I have never heard of the horse. What is that brand?
So from my very brief understanding, it's that bag is a new design that they've recently just made, which I learned from this other guy named Sean, who were mutuals on TikTok. And I said this to them. I didn't say this to them, but I said it to my friend. For the bag that they made, for that bag to be $280, now it's $280, which they upped the price after I made my video. It's another conversation for another day. Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't they? I do not want to know the technicalities of how that bag is made, because for it to be $280 for what you're getting is insane. It truly is.
Why do you say that?
Because it just hits the core principles of just making a great bag that if you're looking to make that leap from like, hey, I never bought any luxurious items for myself, how will I know what is quality versus what isn't? This is a fantastic place to start at that price point.
Because the raw materials are there, because the craftsmanship, like how does one look at a bag like that and know like, oh, this is quality, this should be more expensive? Because
it delivers you the experience similar to you with the row, that so many people have bought it that you're going to be recognized for having it. And it's still at such a price point that it's accessible enough for you to then decide, hey, I love this experience of people acknowledging these outfits that I have or the decisions that I've made, that I want to invest more to spend maybe on a totem blazer or something that is more pricier to get that experience.
Throughout this conversation, I feel like maybe I've given you some little tidbits about my world and asked you some questions, but is there anything that I haven't asked you that you've maybe wanted to like raise your hand and make a comparison or draw a parallel? I mean, I know there was a lot of like things at the top of the show that you were like, oh, like there's so many fun things we can tackle. Like, is there anything we haven't tackled? What is
the row of wine for you? Because clearly you're a fan. Ooh. You're a fan of the brand. I'm seeing the way you're dressing. Mary Kay would love to meet you at some point.
We're both very tiny humans too, so she feel at home. Honestly, you know what it might be? I think I have a perfect answer for this. It's Two Wolves.
Two Wolves.
So Two Wolves. It's a wine you've never heard of, clearly.
Yeah.
In Santa Barbara. And it's Pink's wine, the singer Pink.
Okay. Oh, really?
It's her brand. Yep.
She lives in Chicago.
And she's from Philly. My girl, Alicia Moore from Philly. See, all good things come out of Philly. You walked right into that one. This is such a perfect example because she's someone who really believes in quality materials. Mm-hmm. So she's someone that like it's farming first. She spent a lot of years working on, bought her vineyard, spent a lot of years, just learning the industry, loving the industry. Like you could have a very long conversation with her about the wines of Rhone. She's someone who's like really, truly obsessed with wine, but who doesn't necessarily make it a point to be the focal point of it. Like
Mhm.
it's a celebrity wine, but it's not a celebrity wine. And I think that's very similar to the roe. And if somebody were to see two wolves on a table, it would be super rare because, there's not a lot of it. But I think that's a great example of like what the roe would be. It doesn't have quite the definitely doesn't have the price tag that the roe has. But I think there's a lot of similarities there. Next time I come to Chicago, I will bring you some champagne and we'll have some fried chicken. Where do you get fried chicken in Chicago? Anywhere fun?
There's a lot. My favorite place currently is called Cleo's Cuisine.
Okay. How do
They
you spell that?
CLEO? CLEOS, yeah.
Okay.
The best cornbread I've ever had, and I'm a cornbread enthusiast.
Say less.
Yeah.
Cleo's Cuisine for cornbread and fried chicken?
And fried chicken. You're going to love it.
I will bring the champagne because if you've never had fried chicken and champagne, it will change your life. For sure. Even if you don't like wine. It's one of those combos where you're like, it's like the first time you have like McDonald's and soda and you're like, well, this is delicious. It's like that, but in adult form.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for doing this. I know, it's hopefully for everyone listening, it was like a fun venture into like a slightly different world that lives adjacent. But also, if you're in the wine industry and anywhere even remotely near marketing and you didn't get value out of this podcast for some of the tidbits you had back there in like that beginning half, there was so many great takeaways that I think the wine industry can learn from this. And I think if you're someone that is a consumer of wine, just understanding how wine is marketed versus some of the other things in this world, and that it should be segmented and it's not. And, unfortunately you've got to do a little due diligence on your own to figure out, what lives where and how, but hopefully we illuminated some of that. Holly, are you going to go down to this French bistro now and just like live there since you have a bestie?
Yeah. Honestly, I probably already spend way too much time there. So this just adds lore to that. So I appreciate you for giving me that opportunity.
I love that I could be your entree into this world. I look forward to being in Chicago and actually raising a glass with you. But until then, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Style by Wale. And hopefully you'll be finding me in your closet very soon with products. So we'll keep you posted on that.
Ooh, you're getting your own line. This is very exciting.
Yeah. The lore of two wolves.
I'll be continuing to watch, looking for all of your recommendations. If you are a millennial woman like me, a great place to go for recommendations. And if you're not a millennial woman like me, well, there's probably a millennial woman in your life who would appreciate you watching some of his recommendations, especially since the holidays are coming and we can't just gift wine and wine glasses all the time. Sometimes we want a handbag, and this is the guy that you're going to find it from. So thank you so much. Cheers to you and the rest of your afternoon, whatever may be ahead. And I'll see you soon.
Likewise. Cheers.